Okay.
Heading to go train. Got my range bag, got my gun bag. Now I got my safety equipment. Medical gear, I'm ready to hit the range.
The 2019 Concealed Carry Expo brought to you by USCCA, and we're in our broadcast booth, co-sponsored by 511 Tactical, and I am pleased to be here with Jacob, of course, and also we've got a special guest who was somewhat unscheduled, but because he dropped in from the sky and landed in our booth, we have Michael Bane here with us today, and so thanks for stopping by.
Always, Riley. Thank you very much for having me, and this is a neat event, isn't it? This is something really special. I stand in awe of what they've been able to accomplish in a relatively short span of time.
Yeah, fifth year.
Yeah, we were just talking with Tim about that. The fifth year now.
Fifth year, and now look at it. I mean,
yes.
I told Tim, I said, we met a decade ago, and I sat on his board of directors for the first year, and I said, wow, man, dude, you did good. And he goes, yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think of the vibe of the show? Granted, it's Friday, and it's kind of early, but. And tomorrow, you should see tomorrow. It'll be really filling in.
I like being in a room full of people with guns.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike maybe some people who live in the Northeast or something, I always feel a lot more secure when I'm surrounded by everybody who's already armed.
Yeah.
I think it's unlikely there's going to be a terrorist attack here.
That would be very foolish.
Or a mass shooter. People would have to take numbers. I'm number 185, so leave something. But I think it's important to what we do, what our culture is.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the people who believes very strongly that we do have a separate culture. And not only is it a separate culture, but it's a better culture.
Yeah.
Right.
And
isn't it a remarkable thing that, yes, indeed, we are all here, and chances are 90% of them here are carrying a firearm of some sort. And to the vast majority of the world, that's a crazy idea.
That's right.
That's
right.
Like
this is police week.
They would expect that something bad would go down, but the reality is like you said,
it's absolutely safe arena, and it's the more we spread that word, the better it is for all of us.
Yeah.
I know we're both from Colorado, which is slowly becoming California, and I have people say to me, they're like, "You can't be serious that you carry a gun all the time." And my girlfriend, my sweetie, always goes, yes, he's serious. He carries a gun all the time. And they'll ask her, they'll say, well, is it to protect you? She goes, no, I carry my own gun to protect me. I'm prepared to protect him. She goes, we live in a different world than you guys. But you'd be surprised. We've changed minds.
Yeah.
Is people who came to us and said, I don't understand, now are routinely carrying on a daily basis, which I think is just great.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it might be even a strange idea to some people that even if you don't live in the middle of a big city, that you would still carry a gun on a daily basis. But you recently shared with me, and I don't know if you want to go into that kind of detail, but you shared with me an interesting experience that happened at your home, which is pretty much in a bunker in the middle of nowhere.
It's a little rural.
And I mean, like, crazy stuff happens sometimes in the craziest, most remote areas.
I think that's it. There is a randomness in the universe that can never be removed. I live nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I live a mile and a half up a deeply rutted private road surrounded by ranch land. There's huge signs that say, you can't be here, no public parking, this is private, do not go here.
Do you have a sign that says trespassers will be shot?
Oh, yes. I have a sign that said, honest, no one here is kidding. That's all it says. But we went to a 3-gun match, my sweetie and I. We came back, and in my hallway, there's enough arms and ammunition to take over a small South American nation. There's our 3-gun stuff, the backup stuff, stacks of ammunition. I take a shower, and my sweetie goes, I need you here now. That's never good. I just walk out, pick up a gun, step out, and she goes, she's good at this now after being with me a long time. She goes, pickup truck, 3 males, old truck, looking at addresses, looped down, saw our address, turned around, came back up the driveway. So that's not good. You're not invited here. And I stepped out, and there's things that you teach, that both of you teach. There's things that I teach, which is you don't go to the gun. I mean, you're like, is there anything I can do to help you? Are you having engine trouble? Can I call AAA? Are you lost? Because there are no road signs here.
Yeah.
You can get lost here easy. And the guy looked at me and he goes, no, I think I'm just looking around. And I said, that's kind of the wrong answer. I said, this is private property and private road. I'm going to need you to leave. And he goes, I said I'm looking around. And at that point, he let off on the clutch. The truck rolled forward, and I went to the gun. Because at that point, I had no choice.
Sure.
I went to the gun, and there's a tense minute when you're prepping the trigger. It's coming back, and I'm like, okay, it's not my call here. And the guy stopped and looked at me and grinned, and he goes, another time. Rolled down the driveway and left. I looked over, and my sweetie was stuffing buckshot into her 3-gun shotgun. So, you're going to win.
Yeah, right.
I might not win, but I'm pretty sure she had it covered from there. But why would that happen? It's a random event in rural Colorado where you would not ever think that there's a risk factor at all. But I think it's that for so long in America, we haven't had an enemy, a personal enemy. We haven't been in fear of our life. We haven't been in fear of seeing the crops burned. We haven't been in fear of hordes ascending on us. And now we no longer believe there is an enemy. Yeah. And that's the wrong view. Yeah. There is the enemy is always there because, if you could figure out how to excise evil, let me know. I'll put it on television.
Yeah. Now, Michael, you've traveled all over the world. What are some of your favorite places you've seen? And maybe what are some of the less safe places where there are, in fact, enemies?
It's I used to travel a lot in the third world. And as a journalist, I was briefly a war correspondent. So I do actually know what the bullet that missed me sounds like. I was in Grenada, the Grenada invasion. I was there with a bunch of Rangers who are friends of mine. And somebody shot at me. I jumped in a ditch. And they're going, get out of the ditch, Michael. I said, people are shooting at me. And the guy goes, they're Cuban snipers. They've never hit anything in their entire life. I said, how is that going to look on my tombstone? The only man in history killed by a Cuban sniper. But one of the things I found in traveling in the third world that now I think is applicable to us here is the necessity for invisibility.
Sure.
And that is a learned trait. And a lot of people think it's, I've been in Honduras. Honduras is a free fire zone. I stay at a hotel, I've stayed there a bunch, next to a bar called the OK Corral. And at night, you can just hear the AK-47 spinning off. And everything is dangerous. The military smuggles drugs. Everybody's crooked. And so what you want to do is to be as little visible as you can. And the way you do that is you figure out what the cultural cues are. It's not slavishly imitating how people dress, but you can step in and you can just kind of walk around for half a day and see what the cues are and what a campesina walks like, what a campesina dresses like. You don't have to imitate it perfectly, but my goal is every foreign country I've been in is I want somebody to ask me for directions as a local because that means that I'm not standing out. Yeah. My favorite, I was in Milan. I mean, beautiful city. I was at a big piazza in front of the cathedral in Milan, and my friends had warned me. They said you can get mugged at the cathedral. I said, how's the mugging go? They're like, usually it'll be a really, really beautiful woman will bump you, and while she's excuse, her partner will grab your bag and run. So I made sure I had a briefcase that was reinforced with steel wire. And so I'm in the middle of the piazza, and this really beautiful Italian woman slams into me. She's like, excuse me. And I feel this little tug. It's like trout. And it's like, dinka, 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 dinka. You wait for the hook, and all of a sudden it runs. It grabs the hook, and it runs. And I let it go as far as I could, and I jerked it back. And there was a second woman, and she fell in the piazza, and her skirt went kind of everywhere. And I looked at her, and I said, bad Italian, mustn't mug Americans. And because it's Italy, all these people in the piazza started applauding, and they go, bravissimo, bravissimo. I'm like, thank you so much, thank you. I'm here all week, be sure to tip the waitress, But
that's great.
In others, Africa especially, you carry enough money to buy your way out, and it's cold-blooded, but it's the truth. Is that American dollars will get you through probably the scariest I've ever been. Yucatan Peninsula. I was cave diving, which is stupid in and of itself. I was coming out, and we were stopped, my driver and I, and he goes, don't crack wise with these people. He goes, they're not military and they're not police. And I said, what are they? And he goes, like McDonald's. I said, a franchise? And he goes, yeah, see, a franchise. it's essentially a warlord
Right.
who has the franchise to stop people on this highway. And it's raining, and they got me out. There's maybe 8 guys, and I swear the oldest one wasn't 16. They had rusty FALs, and they all had their hands on the trigger like this, pointing at me. And they spread-eagled me, and I'm thinking, I wonder what I have to say to walk away from this. And they started throwing all my clothes, and every time they'd throw something out of the trunk, the Commandante would say, "Does this bother you, senor?" I said, "No, I'm a happy man." And he took all my dive equipment, pitched it out in the road, and he goes, "Does this bother you, senor?" I said, "Not even a little, sir." I said, "In fact, I know that you have a dangerous job. What you do is important, and I would like to donate my dive gear to the cause." And he goes, "That's wonderful." And I said, "And I have $500 American in a money belt around my waist, and I would like to hand you my belt, if you will allow me, for the cause." And he's
Wow.
like, slaps me on the back. Kids put down the rifles. Everybody's happy. And I'm like, I am never coming back to Mexico. I have met quota. But it's just you do your best to blend in. At the same time, you carry enough money. If you got to buy your way out, buy it.
Yeah.
My
Wow.
girlfriend hates it.
Sure.
Can I tell one like slightly blue story?
Yeah,
We're
let's hear it.
flying to Guatemala, my girlfriend and I. She just started traveling with me. And I go to get the bags, and I see her arguing with customs. And in the third world, you never argue with customs. Never. And I go over, and I'm like, "Sweetheart," she goes, "This man said," I'm like, "Honey, could you just stop over the bags, hold the bags a moment?" And she goes, "All right." And she steps over, and the guy looks at me, and he goes, "Wife, bitch." I said, "You have no idea." I said, "How big a bitch is she?" And he goes, $50 bitch. I said, "50 it is." Bing, bing, bing. And she goes, "Did you give that man money?" I said, "Yeah, I gave him $50. And she goes, "How big a bitch would I have been if I hadn't have popped off?" I said, $20 bitch. Everybody's a $20 bitch. I said, "So keep your mouth shut. I'd save $30. And she's like, "I don't even understand how you do this." I'm like, "You get used to it."
It comes with the territory.
After a while, it's like, well, this makes as much sense as anything.
Yeah.
But,
So what are some things that you're seeing here back home that really alarm you, Michael? I mean, you've been in the firearm space and in our industry for a long time. What's scary here?
red flag laws.
Yeah.
Red flag laws are they're not about taking guns away from mentally deficient people, which is a perfectly valid thing to do. What they are is a weapon designed against us.
Sure.
And the reason they're a weapon, and something you and I have talked about,
Yep.
is that the Colorado law, the New York law, both of which are Bloomberg model laws, are designed so that anyone can dime you. Dial an 800. You could dial an 800 number and say, "I'm Michael Bane's domestic partner. He threatened my life." You don't have to come in. You don't have to sign anything. That's good enough for the court order, and they'll kick my door.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, I mean, if you happen to actually have a mental problem and you're afraid somebody's going to come take your guns, kicking their door at 4 a.m. in the morning is probably not the wisest move in the world. You know?
I don't want to be that officer.
You're doing what they're afraid you're doing. But I think a lot of us in this culture don't understand that when we look at a model law that's drafted by Michael Bloomberg or drafted in conjunction with Bloomberg's lawyers, it's not to do what it says. The universal background check isn't about universal background checks.
No.
Capacity limits isn't about capacity limits. Red flag laws, all of them are designed to essentially criminalize what we do on a daily basis. Yeah. And it's hard to explain that to people. I've had people say, "Well, do you object to universal background check?" I said, "No, not at all. What I object to is the Bloomberg law, because it doesn't have anything to do with background checks. Nothing." And you have to step people through that, and oftentimes people glaze up on you.
Yeah, they don't want to know.
They don't want to know. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I think this is a good thing. But in the Californization of Colorado is a horrible thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's changed a lot just in the 10 years I've been there. So.
I do
Yeah.
like it, though. I live in Larimer County,
Right.
one county north of Boulder, right?
Yeah.
So when you're riding on a bike trail, on this side of the line, the signs say, "Please stay on the trail and be kind to Mother Gaia." And on the other side of the line, it says, "If you can read this, you're in range." And it's just a difference between old Colorado and new Colorado. And it's a huge difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm for secession. I keep thinking I'm going to buy 40 acres in Wyoming, so when Wyoming breaks off, I can claim residency. You know?
We feel you there. Well, Michael, what's coming up in the future for you? I mean, anything exciting? Any new, cool trips you're going on?
Gosh,
New projects?
I'm getting ready to start back on the next season with Joe Mantegna, and I'm for Gun Stories with Joe
Great
Mantegna.
show.
I love working with Joe.
Yeah.
What we never figured when we started working with Joe was that we would become friends. I mean, that was not what we expected, and we have become friends. He's a straight-up guy. He shot, interestingly enough, he shot IPSC in the old days at Southwest Pistol League with Mike Fishman, Mike Dalton, Jim Zubiana.
Yeah.
The old guys there, he shot 1911 with those guys. So I'll be with him in a week. We'll all be up in Virginia and D.C. and then out in L.A. the next week. I don't know. When I got off the plane from Africa this last time, I'm all dirty. Everything's got African red dust on it. I pick up my guns and everything. I load them in my car. My girlfriend's sitting there like this, like, and I'm like thinking, I said, "Is there something I don't know? I mean, what's up?" And she goes, "You cannot keep disappearing into Africa with Richard Mann every June." She goes, "This has to stop. I mean, this is some sort of weird relationship. 1st of June, you and Richard are off on some nitwit adventure." She goes, "It has to stop." Like, okay, I promise. 2019, not going to Africa. I get home a week later. Richard calls. He goes, "Crocodiles and hippopotamus in Zambia. What do you think? I got a deal." Like, you're going to need to call me back in 6 months. I got to make up a plausible lie. But I do understand that that's kind of, you're over there and you're – the great thing about Africa is it's still Africa.
Yeah.
You know, there's still that a sense of wonder.
Yeah.
You know, the first time that you have to radio ahead from a Cessna to have them run the giraffes off the sand runway, you're like, this is so Africa.
That's wild.
You know, it's kind of like watching National Geographic. There's animals running around, and we kind of been all over. I went in Namibia, which I would live in Namibia if the commute wasn't so long. It's a beautiful country. I mean, a spectacular landscape. Second greatest desert in the world, the Namib and the Kalahari.
Sure.
And we flew to the northwest corner of Namibia. And it's sort of where the world ended once. That's the last point that the continents pulled apart on. So you could arguably say the world ended there once. And we visited the Himba tribe, which is this spectacular tribe of nomadic guys. And they're beautiful. I mean, I read in National Geographic they're beautiful. And incidentally, they don't wear clothes. And they paint themselves red with ochre and braid their hair with lard. And it's funny, we're there for a couple. We introduced drones to the Himba tribe. All the kids were like crazy for them. We're showing them themselves fly the drone. They're looking at the pictures on the phone.
Sure.
And my guide goes. It's you need to sit down with the chiefman, the headman, and it's typical to give him some money. And I said, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, happy to do it." Sat down. You know, he sits in a little chair. There are people fanning him, and you sit on the ground. And I got up, and we all are good. And my guide goes, "How much you give him?" I said, $100 American. And he goes, "Oh, God, Michael, he's going to give you a wife and some cows." I was thinking more of 5 rand, which is less than $5.
Right.
I'm like, well, nobody told me. And I said, "Tell him not to give me anything I can't take back on the plane." I mean, the cows aren't going to make it.
Here's a list. Yeah.
But, I mean, just having the ability to experience that. Or I love England. I love London. I visited, this year I was at Purdy. Last year I was at Purdy and Rigby. And it's so cool, when you kind of go to a place like Rigby and they're like, "Oh, by the way, here's Jim Corbett's rifle. And those are the last man-eaters he shot." The wall up, and they're like, "Can I shoot this?" And they're like, "No, Michael, you can't shoot this." Or I was at a little museum in Deadwood. And the guy there, it's after hours, he goes, "Would you like to see the gun that Wild Bill had on him when he's capped at the number 10? I said, "I'd love to." I said, "It's a conversion gun, right?" Because I read the Calamity Jane letter. It's a 1860 44 conversion. And so he comes out with a screwdriver, and he starts taking the case apart. And then he takes the gun out of the case and hands it to me like that. I'm like, "I don't have white gloves." And he goes, "I don't think that's a problem." And I could actually hear Phil Schreier and Jim Sapika at the NRA Museum flinch because there was a disturbance in the force. And so he hands me Wild Bill's gun. I said,
"Wow.
Can I run it?" And he goes, "I don't see why not." And once again, Phil and Jim are like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, clickety. It's got like about 1.5 pound trigger, and it was really slick. I said, "This is a really slick gun. I mean, this is..." it's Wild Bill's gun. You know, I tried that at the Cody Museum with John Jeremiah John Jeremiah Johnson's Hawking,
Sure.
and the lovely Ashley Hubinski, who's the curator, told me that I was stupid and crazy, and she would not take the case apart and hand me the Hawking. Like, gosh, Ashley, I asked for so little. But I mean, it's like when I was at Purdy in London. They have the records of every person who's ever purchased a Purdy ever.
Wow.
And so there are all these books along one wall. Wow. And I said, would it be fair to say that that's the history of Western civilization in those books?
Oh, sure. Interesting.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
I said, show me something cool. So he showed me Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin stopped by that shop to pick up guns when he was loading up the Beagle to sail to, to Easter Island. Churchill, a lot of stuff in the war, especially a lot of World War I snipers. They came there to pick up Mausers that Purdy had modified for them. They showed me a gun sight. I said, oh, this is really cool. They said, we made this gun sight. It's responsible for the single biggest game ever taken with a Purdy. I said, what is that? And he goes, a dirigible over London in 1915. I said, cool, you shot down a German dirigible? And he goes, yeah, the guy landed, took the gun sight off the biplane, and raced it to Purdy and handed it to him. And I'm blathering, but
wow.
One of the things they told me,
remarkable.
I was sitting in a chair at the conference table, and the historian walked past. He goes, that's where Eisenhower sat planning D-Day. I said, you're going to need to wind that back for me a little. I have a pretty good idea of World War II. So how does that figure? He goes, Churchill and Eisenhower were terrified of Nazi spies, and they figured every third person in London was a spy. And so they put their heads together, and Churchill said, what's the one place in London that nobody would think it odd for Allied officers to come in and out of all the time? And Churchill said, the most famous gun shop in the world, Purdy. And so basically, there's a letter of appreciation from Ike on the wall. They planned the D-Day invasion in what they call it the Long Room at Purdy. Because that's the one place that, A, it was unlikely to have German spies, and B, nobody thought it was odd.
Sure.
But I mean, so much of the history.
Okay, you got me sold. I need to visit there. That was not something that was on my mind necessarily, although I'm familiar with the store. But that sounds like a must visit.
That's some serious history.
I took one of their guns out on a Clays field, and I shot it, and I came back, and the guy from Purdy goes, well, what'd you think of it? I said, it's the best shotgun I've ever held in my hand. And he goes, well, of course, but other than that, I mean, it's
I already knew that.
Yeah.
Hello, obvious.
It's or you go out and I've kind of got to shoot everything, which, that's kind of when I was in high school. I had this vision of being a guy who did guns. And my ninth grade high school teacher stood me up in front of the homeroom and made me say out loud that there was no such career as guns. And I'm almost willing to go back and dig her up and say, I beat you.
You're wrong.
That's what you get.
I got a whole career. It's guns,
Indeed.
But, I mean, I still find them fascinating. I find that it's, having been a competitive shooter for so long, it's something that's so easy to describe and so hard to accomplish and to be good at it.
Yeah.
And I can never be young like you again, right? Either of you.
Yeah, that's right. Michael, it's been a pleasure to talk with you, sir, and to honestly just learn from your wisdom and your travels and your experiences.
And Michael, what's your website so everybody knows how to learn more about what you're doing?
We actually just built a giant mega site where you can find everything of mine on Outdoor Channel. It's michaelbane.tv. That's not even complicated.
Yeah, that's easy. michaelbane.tv.
michaelbane.tv. And, of course, Michael Bane, host of Shooting Gallery, Gun Stories, The Best Defense, which is a great show. We appreciate you, sir, for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to stop by us here at the broadcast booth. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.
Riley, thank you.
Appreciate
Jacob,
it, Michael.
It's good to be here.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Now I got to go buy stuff.
Us both. So, guys, sorry, Riley.
Take it away.
Thanks for being with us. We're going to be back with a couple more broadcasts. You're going to see some new faces up here for the next couple of interviews, but we're going to be going live all the rest of today and all weekend. So make sure you stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in here to the 2019 Concealed Carry Expo, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thanks, all. Okay.
Hey, checking out my sweet pose? These bad boys, 511 ABR Pros. Flexibility and comfort that just won't quit. They're Warriors pant, refined, with a straight fit. They pay tribute to their military roots. 9 pockets, plenty of stretch, and they still fit over these sweet boots. So my friend hit me up for a tow. I said, I got you, bro. I got a pair of ABR Pros. So sit back and watch as a few tons of force are absorbed by this reinforced crotch. You may ask me, why use ABR Pro to tow this truck? Because 511 pants are strong as... Check that out. Totally knew it'd work.